Welcome to this CF timesheet tutorial. This spreadsheet can be used if you want to track your daily session notes and then copy and paste them into the appropriate system, as well as tracking your clinical fellowship hours. This is my spreadsheet to show an example of how the spreadsheet would work. First thing you need to do is indicate the direct and indirect hours that your agency or your CF employer has instructed that you need to complete. Of course, it needs to add up to 1,260. And so what happens is in each segment, the numbers that you put in here are just divided by 3 to indicate how much you have to complete. And then the spreadsheet is going to track how much you've completed, and then it's going to show you how much you owe. And once you've met the number of hours, it will indicate complete here. So I'm in segment 2 and I have 92 hours left. And going forward, the update includes a weekly master schedule template so that you don't have to add in your sessions manually each time. You create it here and then you just copy and paste it into the data sheet and then add your notes each day. So I'm going to show you how this works. First thing that you need to do is enter the Monday for the week that you need to work. Once you hit enter, all of these dates will change, as well as the dates that are listed in here. So anything that's highlighted gray has a formula in it, so you can click in it, but you can't delete or change it, otherwise the formulas won't work. So I've highlighted them gray. And even if your first day of work was 9/15, for example, you still need to put this in. So once you do that, you will create your schedule here, listing your students, and individual students, of course, is one row of information. But when you have a group, for example, here, this is a group. There are 2 students in this group, and so each student gets referenced what the full group name is. So all participants in this group will be listed. And I just like to list these students alphabetically so that each time the information is consistent. So these 2 students here are listed in both cells. So if you were to look at a particular student, you would see all of the sessions that that student had and who that student had sessions with. Sometimes that information is useful. And what you need to do is record the session time that pertains to both students, and then only submit one of the entries for calculating the hour. So if I said that yes, both of these are sessions for direct therapy, then it will add up to an hour. So one of the students, whether it's 2 students or 5 students, needs to be indicated as a Y, and all of the other students would be indicated as a no. So here's another group for 3 students, and you'll see that they all have the same information. So Adam, Eric, and Casey are all listed on their own row, but we know that Adam was in a group with these 3 people, and so on. Casey was in a group with these 3 people. And what you'll see is that each student shows the session time was 8:40 to 9:10, and we are only recording a half hour here because we're indicating yes for one of the students. Even if later on in the week we determine that that student was absent, it still needs to be recorded because they still need to get a note for that absence. So how this works is by drop downs. If you were to include, let's say you had to start on Tuesday, this date will change. That's why these are grayed out. But since my work week is going to begin on a Monday, I will put that, and it will calculate it based on this table up here. And all of the direct hours that I've listed here in my schedule will be captured up here. Now, when you are in segment 1, you need to select this drop down and choose direct 1. But since I'm in segment 2, I'm going to put segment 2 here and indirect as well. So you'll see here for Monday, I have a total of 3.5 hours, and then for the whole week, it's 21 hours. If I added any indirect information here, it would be added so that you can see the full net result of the day, which I'll do now. Let's say at the end of the week, Friday, I can record a half hour of indirect time. So here on Friday, you see that indirect half hour is listed. And now that shows a total of 5.5 hours across both activities. To delete a table row, you would click on the first cell in that table. And when you see the black arrow, right click and do that. You could also, in the middle of the table, do the same thing, highlighting that row and right clicking and deleting it off of your table. And then similarly, you can also right click and insert a row. So what I would do is I need to take all of this information and paste it into the CF data entry tab so that I can start adding session notes. And to do that easily, you just hover over the columns that are highlighted in blue. When you see the black arrow, select them, and what that will do is it will only highlight the items that you need to take into the spreadsheet. So we're going to copy that and then go into the data entry sheet, and then at the next available blank row, click into that cell. And this is very important. You want to paste the values, because if you just do copy and paste, you will replace any kind of formula that's working. And then now when Monday comes around, I can come in and have that session and then just record my notes. And I can indicate that the services were provided, where they were provided, and how the student performed. If any of this information is not necessary, or if you need to edit that, you can go into the drop-down tables, and here are the listings that you can keep, rearrange, or change. And to do that, these work like tables again, and each column is its own table. And so if you didn't want this item, you can wait until you click over it and get the black arrow, right click, and then delete the table row, and then that item will go away. If you want to add something, you can just click underneath that cell and start typing, and it will complete the table. If something is in this list that you don't need, here I'm going to go to this table, and you'd want to delete it, you can click over that cell, right click, and then just delete that off of the table row, and it doesn't interfere with any of the other tables. If you wanted to add something, you can insert it. And the order that you have it in here will be the order that it is in when you drop down on the tables in the spreadsheet. In the caseload manager, you cannot delete column A. You can add as many columns to the right of it as you want, but you can never delete this, because this is what's going to be making the student caseload available to you. If I were to add a new row and go to the drop down for students, my student list is here. And if I were to delete this, then the student list would be gone. So you can also add new students, and then they should be available in the drop down here and in here. If I need to add a new session to the table, I can just type below the last row, or go to the last cell that has this indicator there, and then here you'll see the student name is now available. This field, the group members, is a manual entry field. You can leave it blank if you want, but I found that if you list all of the students that are in that group, it's much more helpful and it's easier to monitor. So now this spreadsheet is telling me that I have 21 hours for this particular part-time caseload. If I had indirect entries here, you can replace the student name with your activity description, and it will give you an error message, and you can choose to continue, and it will overwrite that, which is what you want it to do. If it's PM, just put PM. If it's AM, you don't need to. And then we can flag it as a yes. And then this 0.5 comes up under Wednesday. So if you want to see how many session notes you need to write for the week, it's not always aligned to how many students you have. because the students are seen twice a week, and then some students are grouped, so you can't even go by sessions. So you would go by the frequency number in their mandate. So if this student is seen twice a week, this student needs 2 notes, even if he was in a group of 3 or whatever the case is. But so how do you figure that out? You will go to the direct activity, and I put a link just to pop you to the right place for the number of session notes that you need, and then just select all of your direct entries. When that's filtered, you'll see that you need 50. You need 50 session notes for your caseload. I'm going to go into data to clear the filters. The caseload history tab is something that you can use if your caseload expires and now you're at a new school. You can copy and paste any of the information that's in here and just leave a record of it here. Another helpful piece of information is this number here. So the number of frequencies that I've listed here are coming from the mandate. So for this student, I put 2. For this student, I put 1, and so on. And what this is going to do is going to add that up. And so this number 50, if you remember, when I selected only my direct activities, came out to 50. Okay. And as you progress through the school year, you may have students drop off of your caseload, in which case, just to have everything in one place, I like to put that information here and then remove them off of this column. So how I would do that is I would just take the student's name here and then any other information that I had for that student. And then now my numbers have updated, and also the drop-down is updated to not include that student. I think that is all that there is in terms of updating your spreadsheet. So hopefully these updates will be very helpful as opposed to going into each row and adding in one session at a time. You can now do it by using this spreadsheet. Thank you so much for watching.